Major underwriting for A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Foles was provided by the Baton Rouge Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Baton Rouge, our past is your present. Baton Rouge, authentic Louisiana at every turn. And People's Drugstores, serving South Louisiana for generations. George and Shirley Piku are proud supporters of A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Foles. And by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Our mission is to tell Louisiana's story to the world. And by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism.
Where you have this architecture, history, music.
And the bittersweet cry of the blues.
Especially the blues.
There you go.
How about a dozen?
Red beans and rice.
We rolling, y'all.
We're a nation of immigrants, a country with roots in other soils. Nowhere is that more true than in the country of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Foles, inviting you to tune in to A Taste of Louisiana and a new series dedicated to our food heritage. Louisianians are descendants of 7 primary nations that have influenced every dish we cook today. Welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. All right, how y'all doing, guys? Hey, good night to see you. Y'all wonderful, wonderful. How y'all doing? Hey, my man, good to see you, good to see you. Oh, I tell you, what a great day, what a great day, huh? Hey, Julie. I tell you, when Julie Council brings out that accordion over there, you drive me crazy, baby. Huh? Y'all, it's so wonderful to have all of you in the kitchen today. I tell you, it's a great day for cooking. And today I'm doing one of my absolute favorite styles of cooking of the Germans of the River Road of Louisiana. And you know, we're focused here on trying in my kitchen to bring a little taste of all of the 7 great nations that came together to create Creole cuisine and all of their contributions to the Louisiana pot. And we're focusing on the wonderful cultures that established themselves here. And I tell you what, today is one of the absolute best, one of the most committed to our culture, the Germans of Louisiana. So we're going to be doing a lot of great, and I know we have Germans here. We have Germans from Menden, we have Germans from Destran, we have Germans from New Orleans, and some of us Germans just came out from under a rock, like me and Glenn. Anyway, y'all, thanks so much for being here, and you just relax, have a good time, because I'm feeding you after, and it's going to be great, great food. Y'all, I'm a little partial to the topic of today's show, the Germans. I love the story of the Scottish financier John Law, who lured the Germans to Louisiana. I love that the German farmers saved the city of New Orleans from famine, not once, but twice. But most of all, I love the German story because my ancestors came aboard one of the first ships of the Germans coming to Louisiana, Les Deux Frères. My good friend Glenn Falgoose shares the story of our German ancestors. The story of the Germans in Louisiana begins with a man named John Law. Law was a Scottish financier, a banker, a speculator, and perhaps more importantly, a gambler, a rogue, and an outlaw. Law happened to be a good friend of Philippe, Duc d'Orléans, who was then serving as regent of France. Law became president of the Company of the Indies and obtained a 25-year charter to develop the agriculture of the Louisiana colony and to populate the territory.
Some people would say John Law was an opportunist. John Law, for the sake of history, was probably an unfortunate character, because history has painted him now as somewhat of a fugitive and a rogue and a gambler. But if history had gone a little bit his way, he would have been considered maybe the Donald Trump of his day. John Law would have gone down as a great man.
At that time, France restricted overseas colonization to French Catholics only. Law instituted an intensive campaign to lure settlers to Louisiana, but only a small number responded.
They tried to populate Louisiana with the derelicts of France. The mission was that they needed no foreigners in Louisiana, and they must have Catholics. And so they populated Louisiana with about 1,200 criminals and prostitutes and vagrants. And of course, they found out that didn't work very well. Most of them died or were killing each other in poor Louisiana.
Thankfully, the regent relented and allowed foreigners to populate the colony. Law developed a massive propaganda campaign to attract German and Swiss settlers to the region. In a document entitled The Magnificent Country of Louisiana, Law proclaimed Louisiana to be a semi-tropical paradise, a land of gold and silver, a land of herbs and plants for apothecaries, a land of healing remedies and infallible cures for the fruits of love.
They came out en masse. They had been persecuted for years, living under harsh regimes, war, high taxes, and they wanted to be able to live free.
In all, 520 families, or about 4,000 individuals, signed up as indentured servants under contract to the company. In spring 1720, these Germans started a 60-day, 1,000-mile journey to Lorient, France.
A newspaper of the day near Orléans, France, reported of the journey that we see 70 families of Germans passing through here on their way to Orléans and the Atlantic seaport and on their way to Louisiana.
But when they arrived, the ships were not yet ready to sail. Shelter and provisions were scarce, conditions were unsanitary, diseases claimed hundreds. Months passed. Many would-be immigrants returned to Germany. Ultimately, about 1,000 Germans sailed for the New World, but only 700 actually arrived.
They were dumped on the beaches at Biloxi and mostly left to fend for themselves as they were in the ports of France. And had it not been for the Pascagoula, the Alabama, and the Biloxi native tribes, which were very friendly, they probably would have all died. The tribes brought them corn and vegetables and that favorite meal called sagamite, which is basically grits.
My German ancestors arrived in Louisiana in March 1721 on board the first ship to set sail, Les Deux Frères. The German surname Falls today, originated in the Ramstein and Kaiserslautern areas of Germany. The 1724 Louisiana census records a Jean Jacob Falls living in the German villages at Les Aliments in present-day St. Charles Parish. He was 26 years old and a native of Ramstein in the Palatinate. He was a Roman Catholic, a shoemaker with a wife and a one-year-old child. Antoine Falls, the grandson of Johann Jacob, founded Vacherie Falls. He was born on the German coast between 1755 and 1760 at present-day Edgar. Around 1796, he and his family moved to his cattle ranch, or Vacherie, on the ridges bordering the west side of Lake des Aliments. Many Fallses, as well as descendants of the Waguesbacks, Schexneiders, Trosclairs, Zarangs, Oobs, Webbers, Heidells, Lesches, Stalls, and Emil, still live in Vacherie today, and here along the original German coast in St. Charles, St. James, and St. John the Baptist parishes. Whew. I tell you what a great history that many people, even in Louisiana, don't know. When we look at all of these different cultures coming to settle this land, how much don't we know, or how much has been forgotten over the years? And here's a great example of the plight that the Germans took to get to this land, to save the city of New Orleans, as I mentioned. Y'all have a couple of great guests on the show. You've already met Glenn Falgout in that piece. Glenn, great job up there. Really, really fantastic. And I notice everybody has a can of beer in front of them. Huh? Mm-hmm. Henrik Orlik, right here from Heinebrauer Brewery. Henrik, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. Thanks for giving the beer out today.
Sure, it was a pleasure.
I see nobody's complaining.
Yep, it sounds good. It's good.
And then, of course, Andrew Capone from the Ford Butler Foundation. Nice to have you.
Good to be here, John.
And Julie, I need you to introduce all of the band members again to everybody.
Yeah, Joe Messina on trumpet and Robert Tasso on tuba.
from the Jubilee German Band, and it's so nice to have y'all. Now, y'all have a couple of special Germans in the audience too. We'll talk about in a little bit, but welcome to all of you. And yeah, that's good. You can make any kind of noise you want with that squeeze box over there. Y'all, one of the things that when you talk about cooking, the Germans, as we say, saved the city of New Orleans twice from starvation. So we know that they were great beer makers. Naturally, we knew they were great dairymen. We knew they were great farmers. They were fabulous at that task of farming. And of course, the whole family with their work ethic guaranteed a great production every year. In fact, I was looking back in some of the early records where my ancestors who came here first, they didn't have too good of a crop their first year. The Falsers had a bad crop the first year. But we did all right the second and third year, you know what I mean? So just in case people didn't think we pulled our load, you know. So what am I going to cook? I'm going to cook a great potato dish. Potatoes were not in favor in Germany back in the 1700s, or when the Germans came to Louisiana. And in fact, it took Frederick the Great to sit on a balcony and eat a big bowl of potatoes to entice the peasants to eat these potatoes to keep them alive and well. And of course, they referred to them after that as earth apples or ground pears. And in Louisiana, they really ended up being part of the salvation of our early colonies because we had potatoes. Look on my board here. A couple of different potatoes. We have, of course, the nice, big, gigantic baking potato, the red. I just love these red skin potatoes. Doug, you like these, huh? Yeah, go ahead and take one of those then, huh? The white potatoes, the purple, and look, the Germans lived on the river. So, of course, river shrimp, the Mississippi River gave us a lot of wonderful shrimp, and river shrimp would have been the shrimp of choice here. And then the smoked meats. There's great controversy. Did the Germans bring the andouille sausage? Did the French bring the andouille sausage? Who knows? Well, in German Louisiana today in Laplace, you can buy all andouille and smoked sausage. So I guess that tells the real story about that. They each had their hand in it, but good smoked sausage from the Germans, a good preservation method of meats. So the Germans ate potatoes boiled and stuffed and mashed and baked and fried in soups and in everything else. So I'm going to make one of my favorite dishes as a young boy growing up in Louisiana, the potato and shrimp stew. The fricassee of potatoes and shrimp. So I had my brown roux going. Now the Germans wouldn't have brought the brown roux. They would have borrowed that from their other good friends in the neighborhood. Smoked sausage would have gone into it. Glenn, while I'm sauteing this right here, the Germans really had, those first 2 years were really tough for them. I mean, a lot of storms and destruction. I mean, the path over here was probably the easiest part of the trip. Once they arrived,
absolutely, yeah. The suffering that they underwent staggers the mind by today's people. But they were disciplined enough, a strong belief in God, and fought to be here for freedom.
Well, can y'all smell that smoked sausage? I bet. Now into this onions, celery. This is just a typical fricassee of the French, really. I mean, to have a stick-to-your-ribs type dish with potatoes, with shrimp, with the dark brown roux to put over rice, because Germans were great rice eaters here. In fact, rice was one of their big crops. Huh?
Rice was one of their fine crops.
So y'all, this smells. What about garlic? Did the Germans eat a lot of garlic, huh? Yeah, I'd say so. Yes, indeed. Germans love garlic, let me tell you. We still love garlic, huh? Now, into this, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and put in my potatoes, because the potatoes are actually going to be, this is a starch too, right? Just really, really nice. It's going to thicken the stew even more. And I'm going to put the potatoes in the roux. And actually, it was rice. The first census records of the Germans in Louisiana show that the Falses, Johann Jacob False's rice crop failed. He only made like a half a bushel. Well, you know, we weren't great at farming, but we were good at cooking it. All right, y'all, now into that, the shrimp right here. I'm going to put the shrimp into it. Now, this looks good, huh? I mean, just think of something this simple. A little bit shrimp, a little bit potatoes, all of that. Now, I actually made a stock. You can see why this would stick to your ribs. Now, take a look at this. Huh? Would that stick to your ribs or what? Now I'm going to add a little shrimp stock into it, and I'm going to let this come to a rolling boil. The roux will thicken this into just a really nice, wonderful, thick stew. And the Germans would actually eat this over another big plate of starch, white rice. Or they could actually, believe it or not, take this and serve it over mashed potatoes. Potatoes over potatoes. Now, y'all, I'm going to let this simmer for a little while. Everybody has their can of Heinebrow, right? Everybody's got it. Look, he didn't bring that here just for a little bit in there. Oh, that's going to make this only better. Y'all, let's take a look at the finished product right here. I'd season that with salt and pepper, a little green onions and parsley. Take a look at what the shrimp and potato stew looks like. See, it just thickens more. You put it right on top of white rice. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a great, great dish. And again, you can imagine the combinations here. A little bit more andouille, a little bit more tasso, a little bit more ham in there. It would have been absolute. A little bit more water, you had a potato soup. You get the idea. Well, y'all, what can I say? A few things come to mind when I think of the Germans: cabbage, sauerkraut, brats, and of course, beer. Not surprisingly, Louisiana is home to a fabulous German beer maker who introduced me to his art. Meet master brewer Henry Orlick at his fabulous Heinebrow Brewery in Covington, where I went to get my first lesson. Hey, this is it in a can right here. Y'all, I'm here in the little town of Covington, Louisiana today with master brewer here, Heinrich Orlick, and he's just opened this wonderful microbrewery here, the Heinebrow. And now, you have a really great background in brewing. You come from Germany, right?
Yeah. I started with 16 to learn the trade of brewing in Germany. With 25, I got to college, did my degree, and I be one of the people who can say for 30 years I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Yes,
I go up in the morning happy and go home happy.
Well, I mean, a brewer being happy, I guess so. This is you bring a lot of good fun to a lot of people's lives. How did you get to Louisiana?
One of the things was the microbeer industry. And I always enjoy America. I was here a couple of years visiting family, and I decided to come over, and I got a job here in a microbrewery in Louisiana. I love it. I'm here for 10 years. It's great.
And now Louisiana has a great German history of brewing beer anyway, right?
Yeah. The first brewers here in Louisiana and New Orleans were Germans, and one of the oldest one is the Fahlbachers.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of tradition, and I really like to bring back the old way of brewing beer to Louisiana.
Now, I was reading somewhere that you follow the German laws of purity. What exactly does that mean?
It means that the law is from 1516, and can you use only barley, water, yeast, and hops.
Yeah,
nothing else. And
this is very pure.
Yeah.
Now, when I think of making beer, I think of a brewery. I think of a microbrewery. I look at all of this great equipment, and I think to myself, could I really make that myself? I see that we have this set up here. Is this for home brewing?
This is for home brewing. This is from a friend of mine who's a home brewer. It's homemade.
Yeah.
What you use some old kegs were broken and reconstructed in the brew system. And it's the same what we have here.
So this would make about 5 gallons of beer right here. Now, if I didn't want to get this serious in making beer, I could go to one of the stores and buy one of the kits, right?
Yeah, I would say before you're starting getting this kind of system, buy a small kit, try it out. When you have success and you show it to your friends, and everybody say, wow, this is great, and go on the next level.
Well, great. Let's take a look at some of the ingredients that go into making beer, because I don't know a whole lot about it. So what are these, the 5 major ingredients?
This is really the basic ingredients is different kind of malt.
Right.
What makes the flavor. This is hops.
Yeah, hops.
And then you need on the end yeast.
So 5 basic ingredients, the hops, the malt, the yeast right here.
Yeah.
And these 2 are...
This is different kind of barley. This is a Pilsner malt, and this is a Carter Pils. Carter Pils is more roasted, has a little bit more sweetness.
Right. Now you're going to add this to a recipe. Now, see, you have a recipe here. Is this the recipe for the one you're going to teach me to make?
Yeah, this is what we're making today. This is a simple, basic German-style Kölsch from the town of Cologne.
Yeah.
An interesting part is about New Orleans and Mardi Gras. This is the #1 beer for Mardi Gras in Germany.
All right, great. So this is it right here. A nice light beer like
very
this.
Simple beer.
Let me take a sip of it here. I think this is it. Let's go make beer. You ready?
Yep, I'm
We're
ready.
going to go make beer, and y'all, you're going to get a chance to taste the results of my brewing in just a minute. Let's go back here and mix it up, okay?
Yep, sure.
All right. I tell you, I don't know if I want to cook any. I have to listen to all that great music and of course a little Heine Brown. I don't know. I might want to cook more before the day is over with. Anyway, y'all, hey, welcome back to the kitchen here. I have a nice pot of ground beef going here. Wait till you see what I'm cooking here. One of those very early German dishes, and it just makes sense if you think about it. This is a soup. And it would have been any combination of vegetables, because remember, the Germans are farmers on the river. They're dairymen. They have meat. They have pork. So they could do a combination of these things. Beans, we're going to make a soup of cabbage and ground beef and pork. And we're going to put all of this together in the pot. The beans become a thickening agent. The meat gives us its flavor. It's also a way of getting rid of product. Once you kill the calf, you had to hurry up and try to do something with it. There was no refrigeration, so you had to make all of these multitudes of dishes. So in my pot here, and Keith, you might want to get down in the pot, I have my ground beef going right here, really nice and brown. Look how nice and golden brown that is. This is beef and pork, and the beef is for texture and the pork is for flavor. So I'm going to just stir that around a little bit, and into the pot, onions, celery, bell pepper. You notice that in our dishes, we keep putting the same grouping of flavorings. Here, the red, green, yellow bell peppers, all of them into the pot. It just makes the pot that much prettier. More garlic. I know you love it. I know you love it. I'm going to put it down in there. Henrik, I wanted to ask a question about why beer making. Most of the Germans came from the wine making region of Germany, but yet they all made wine, all made beer when they got here. Why was that?
Yeah, most of the time to make beer was much easier because you need only really a starch part, as it means you have barley. You can use potatoes or rice in this process, and so you have not like wine, you have to grow the wine. Here this was much easier. You have dry ingredients. You can brew from one day to the next day, and 3 weeks later you have a finished product.
Right. So y'all, I'm going to put in here a little bit tomatoes. I've already sauteed the onion, celery, bell pepper. I'm going to come in here with more of the tomatoes. And of course, not too much spice in German cooking. German cooking was very light in flavor. A little salt, a little pepper. But as far as for the heavy spices, not a whole lot. The French adopted naturally the hot spices from Mexico into the cooking, and eventually it made its way into some of our German dishes as well. So now the base of the soup is made. It's really coming together nicely here, and we're gonna just continue to saute this really good until it boils and it starts to tenderize and all of those great things. I'm also cooking in cast iron here, even though it's pretty colored. This is cast iron, and the cast iron really carries the heat through the dishes wonderfully here. So with that, now I'm going to add a little bit stock to it, because the stock, I'm making a beef stock. You can make a chicken stock. Any type of stock would be really good with this, because after all, it's just a nice vegetable soup basically. So I'm going to put the stock in here. Again, not a lot of salt and pepper. I want all of these things to come together quickly. So y'all, I have all of this going, my meat, my stock. Look, this looks like a great, beautiful vegetable soup. Now the cabbage. Oh, now the cabbage. All of that down into the pot. And now the cabbage is going to cook very quickly. There's a lot of great dishes in Louisiana, like the makshu, that is corn and cabbage. And I'm going to, now I have a couple sitting in the front row right here, Gerard and Debbie Muntz. And I have a label from a canning company that your grandfather opened many years ago. It just goes to show that there was a whole multitude of vegetables being grown and bringing great Louisiana German vegetables all over the United States. So thanks for bringing me that label too over there from one of the early cans. And then y'all, so this is going to cook away. Let me show you what it looks like right here. It's all nice in my beer pot. You see all the beans, the cabbage, just wonderful. Oh, nice hearty dish. Glenn, you see the beer bread right here? See the beer bread made with Henrik's nice Heine Brown beer. Just go ahead and put a little cream cheese on it, y'all. That's going to be fantastic, but please don't eat it all at once. Save some for the rest of our friends here. Cream cheese, another great gift of the Germans, by the way, because they brought all of the dairy industry to Louisiana. So soup, potato stew and shrimp, beer bread, good friends, great music. Oh, Unbelievable. I love the Germans. Y'all, time flies when you're having good fun and enjoying great food and conversation with friends in the kitchen. Thanks for stopping by as we continue to explore our unique food heritage and cook up another great taste of Louisiana. I want to hear more of that music. Oh, good. Let me
To purchase the Encyclopedia of Cajun and Creole Cuisine by Chef John Foles, featuring more than 750 traditional recipes, a CD-ROM of the book, or a copy of the program featuring all 3 episodes of Today's Culture, call the number on your screen. Major underwriting for A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Foles was provided by the Baton Rouge Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Baton Rouge, our past is your present. Baton Rouge, authentic Louisiana at every turn. And People's Drug Stores, serving South Louisiana for generations. George and Shirley Picu are proud supporters of A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Foles. And by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Our mission is to tell Louisiana's story to the world. And by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism,
where you have this architecture, history, music,
And the bittersweet cry of the blues.
especially the blues.
There you go.
How about a dozen?
Red beans and rice.
We rolling, y'all.